Good evening, everyone. It's time for Necromaniacs Horror Podcast. How's it going, Mike?
It's going well, man. As Mr. Hill just said, you're listening to Necromaniacs Podcast, coming at you each and every Thursday, the greatest horror podcast in the world. It's going good, man. It was good to see you yesterday in the dirty Jersey, huh?
Yeah, Maplewood. Not a very dirty town, though. Very nice town, actually.
Oh, no, a lovely town. Beautiful Maplewood, New Jersey. I don't think I had ever been there before, Mike.
I was there for the other Maplewood record fest that happened last year at some point during, I think it was a colder season, maybe the fall.
Yeah, I think they do two a year.
And my good friend Charles Maggio of Rorschach fame is one of the organizers of that operation there.
Oh, nice. Was he there yesterday?
Yeah. Actually, two members of Rorschach were there. Him and Nick Forte were both there.
Yeah. I guess I did not meet him, even though I knew like 10 vendors. I did not meet the guy behind the curtain. It was funny. I got there very early with Stella and, setting up. And as more people came in, it was just like I was saying hello to more and more people. And she's like, do you know everybody here? And I'm just like, maybe I do know everybody here. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I always run into a lot of people there. Unfortunately, Will Chainsaw Safety was not able to make it. He normally goes to the Maplewood Record Convention, or whatever the hell it's called, it's Record Fair. But his son had a hockey game that day, so he couldn't make it down.
Oh. Yeah. Well, yeah, it was really cool. Bought a few things. Didn't get too crazy because I'm trying not to get too vinyl crazy, even though I say that, and then of course I'll buy some shit online all the time. But no, there was a lot of good stuff to get. I mean, I think if I had more of the expendable funds, I certainly would have utilized them.
Yeah, I only bought two things. I'm in the middle of moving. I spent a big sum of money recently getting to move. Movers,
I can imagine.
All the stuff that you got to deal with that. Also my records are packed up, so I don't want to. The last thing I want to do is have a bunch of random LPs laying around. So I did get two things. I got Flamingo by Jeffrey Lee Pierce, the dude from the Gun Club, and I got Tar Roundhouse. I went there looking specifically for old Amphetamine Reptile records that I don't have and stuff and Gun Club or Jeffrey Lee Pierce, like bootlegs. That was the kind of
nice
stuff. Yeah.
So, I got a very nice bootleg that I showed you with Nice Fields of the Nephilim bootleg that apparently came out in like 91 or 92 actually, which has some cool live shit on it, like unreleased shit. And I got a first press Descendants record that I had wanted. I mean, I had one years ago and I probably sold it on the course of my life, but I got it back. And then I got some cool comics, some cool old school Marvel horror comics from the 70s and some Conan comics. So that's always fun.
Yeah, I stayed away from that, man. I would end up dropping, the guy had like trades and all that. I definitely did not go near that table because I would end up spending money there for sure.
Yeah, he was a cool guy. I mean, everybody was very nice, definitely we'll go back to that again. It is in a really nice part of town in Jersey, Maplewood.
Yeah, nice town, definitely. Before we get going, we just shout all of our buddies out. Of course, Monday.
That's right.
We have the four horsemen, the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse.
That's right. There's more than four. There's more than four.
We're a growing group here. Yeah. So, of course, Monday brings us Brandon Legion's Horror Wolf 666, another horror podcast, but he focuses on interviews with up-and-coming filmmakers, old filmmakers, pretty much anyone. Sometimes we're on there as guests. We have crossover episodes.
That is true.
Yeah. Tuesday is Into the Necrosphere, hosted by Jackie Smith, and that really is the best metal podcast out there.
Oh, I have to agree.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. I listened to the episode where he had the guy from Shudder, black metal band.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. I like that band. So
yeah, they're a great
that was
band.
Fun.
Yeah. Wednesday is Everything Went Black, which is my podcast that I've been doing for, a couple 100 years, it seems like.
Yeah.
I think before there was electricity, I was doing that podcast. Still
Yes.
still going strong. And
Hmm.
of course, Thursday is Necro Thursday, which is today.
Hmm.
Friday brings us Break the Apocalypse with your brother, John Draper.
Um, just want to say that apparently there might be some changes underway at the old Break the Apocalypse, which changes to be announced shortly. Hopefully, I'm not breaking any, fourth wall, whatever the hell they call it. But I would stay tuned to that show to hear about some of the changes underfoot at the old Break the Apocalypse.
Saturday is a day off from all the excellent content that we're bringing you guys. So go out. The weather's getting
Hmm.
nice. Go out and get yourself a nice coffee. That kind of thing. But Sunday, the darkness descends on Sunday with Soul Knox, brought to you by Carl Hikara. And
Yes,
he and I are in this collaboration. Darkness Weaves. Every month we swap which show puts out an episode about the work of Carl Edward Wagner.
excellent.
Yeah.
And there's your week, kids. Always something cool to listen to. And I have to say, we'll get into it in a second, but it was nice to hear one of the phone calls from the Evil Dead Rise episode talk about how the listener got so much enjoyment out of all the different podcasts, and he thinks it's so cool that we're all friendly and we all support each other. So I actually got a little feels over that one, Mike.
Yeah, me too, man. And actually, now that you mention it, the voicemail number, the necro phone, is
The Necrophone, yeah, that's the name. The
yeah
Necrophone,
nine
yes.
908 913 0782 908 913 0782. And there's no Mike from Pennsylvania this week, man.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's okay.
he's out there. Hopefully, still rocking and rolling. And also, we
Exactly.
had
Hope
two
so.
calls last week, but we don't have anybody this week. So what are you gonna do?
What are you going to do? As long as they're listening to the podcast, that's the most important thing. And thankfully, we could see some of those numbers.
Oh yeah,
Thankfully,
yeah.
and we are. I just want to say we are grateful for each and every one of you. The newcomers, the long timers, even the ones who drop in and out. Right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. You need some variety in your life, obviously. Yeah, but we really appreciate everyone listening, and we've got a bunch of new people, which is great.
Hmm.
And with the calls too, man. I love getting the calls, man. They're a lot of fun. And also, I've been compiling a list of recommendations. There's been a lot of great recommendations that come our way via the Necrophone. So we're going to be delving into that list. And
Awesome.
some of the stuff's been really, really interesting, man. Like movies that why do we never cover that? Excellent stuff.
Hmm. It's cool. Like I think the voicemails give this interesting, like old school layer of like appreciation in a way because it almost makes you think that like your podcast is like a radio show, and if you had a radio show you could have like a live call-in listener. While podcasts function differently from that, I feel like having this phone number is like a bit of like a line to the past in a way of like an old school way of getting like some nice commentary validation from listeners. What do you think?
I love it, man. I think it's cool. Like I said, I really enjoy hearing from everyone, and I really do appreciate the list that we're getting. And I'm gonna compiling a nice list. Whenever we feel like we need, what are we gonna do next week? We have a list, and there's some
That's
great
great. Yeah.
recommendations, man. And like I said, some of the recommendations, like, well, how come we never did this one? Because it seems like so obvious to me.
Yeah, and it's funny because I feel like some of them have been ones that have 100% been mentioned in passing during older episodes, right?
Well, Death Dream, which Mike from Pennsylvania brought up, was something that you
Yep.
and I had been discussing for years.
Hmm.
Actually, that was something we've been talking about for a while.
And also raw meat also.
Yep.
Death of Mine was something that you would always say, yeah, and I always be like, yeah, I've never seen that movie. It was just kind of like one of those things.
Yeah.
So wanted to just say a little something. While I have not watched it yet because Mike Scandato is a bad horror fan, Mike Hill, I understand you watched some of last night's Chainsaw Awards on Shudder. Did you not?
I watched the entire thing, man.
Oh,
That's I live a very boring life. Normally, my nights, it's me and my cat sitting in a dark room. So not a whole lot goes on over here. So I had time, to watch it, and it was fun. It was co-hosted by Peaches Christ, and I always screw up this guy's last name, but you've seen him in a bunch of movies. David Dastmalchian. Yeah,
Hmm.
you know who he is. He's gonna
I guess I would know him by sight, but I do not know who Peaches Christ is.
Peaches Christ. I think is on one of those like drag shows on Shudder. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
Dasmalchian, and I'm probably destroying his last name. He's like he's a very recognizable face. He was in
Mhm.
he's going to be in the Boogeyman, that new Stephen King
Oh,
thing.
Rich, I tell you, the trailer looks great.
Yeah.
Definitely want to see that. So yeah,
So he's
that's
the
cool.
father in the trailer. That's the guy, the dark-haired guy.
Oh, okay.
Right? And he's been on the new Twin Peaks, the latest Twin Peaks installment that came out a few years ago. Gotham.
Yes. Hmm.
He's been in the Last Voyage of the Demeter. He's going to be in that too. So he's actually kind of on like an upswing in his career. He's been on. You got two movies coming out that you're going to see him in. So he was a co-host on that, and yeah, it was fun.
So was it audience or no audience?
No, it was there was definitely no live audience. There was, I would love for them to do an event like that, even if it was just like in a small venue somewhere with like a couple hundred people. I get
Yeah,
that they probably couldn't do it live, but it'd be fun
I
to have,
think so.
yeah, and have like the guests and musical stuff. It just whatever. Maybe there's no budget for that. Who knows? I think that'd be fun to see an audience reaction. But I mean, I enjoyed it. There was a lot of love for Terrifier 2, which is
Yes,
rightfully
that I
so.
saw on social media and Instagram. So it basically won the Best Picture award for best, like what, smaller limited release,
Yeah,
smaller release.
yeah, that
Oh,
was yeah, exactly. And then some stuff that not everyone has the same taste. You know what I mean? But
right,
couple things I wasn't so stoked about. I know that Benson and Moorhead were up for something. They did not win.
right.
But I get it.
Who was the overall best film, like major release winner?
Oh, you're asking me these questions. I don't have any answers for that, man.
Oh no. Okay. Okay.
I was getting bombarded with text messages from somebody I wish would stop texting me during the show. So
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha. Mhm.
but so I was kind of paying attention to that, trying to stave off some other shit. So yeah.
Well, I could Google it myself possibly and look it up. But you know what? I am going to check it out. I'm going to watch the replay. I was kind of really all about watching my second to final episode of the last season of Succession on HBO, which I'm really digging. So that kind of, I guess, took precedence for me because I'm a terrible horror fan. So yeah,
That's all good, man. I heard that show is good. I
yeah,
never really checked it out.
great show, great show. Not horror, drama, but also has some very funny, parts to it, and it's a cool show, really good show, good acting. Um, but yeah, I mean, I definitely want to check out the Chainsaw Woods. I saw some digs about it online. I saw some praise for it. Kind of, I guess, a mixed bag overall. You can't please them all, Mike.
No, I'm happy that something like that exists, though. I mean
Exactly.
that's the
Like I
thing.
feel like as far as it doesn't really get as much love as it should at the Oscars, which well, it doesn't. Why not the Chainsaw Awards, right?
Well, that's exactly right, Mike, and that's the thing. I wish people would just shut the fuck up and appreciate what they have. It's like where else are you going to go to get recognized? You know what I mean? Like it's like you can't go to the Oscars because they don't really give respect to horror films or any kind of genre movies.
I liken the complaining about the lack of horror at the Oscars to the people who watch the Grammys in the modern era and complain about the lack of metal. It's just two things that you shouldn't even care about at this point, right?
I know, man. It's really people just like to complain.
Like complain. Like I'm sorry, your Lamb of God is not going to be on television for the Grammy, the live Grammy show,
There's going to be
and
no deicide on the
no
Grammys.
deicide, no Lamb of God, no, it's just not going to happen. Fenriz is not getting up there, and
Yeah.
gonna,
The-
chat it up with some horrible pop star of today. But yeah, I mean, you just gotta let some things go, I think. And I think Terrifier 2 will never be, talked about by like, Ellen DeGeneres hosting the Oscars. It's just probably not gonna happen.
exactly, and it shouldn't be, and that's the point.
Yeah.
It's for us, it's for fans, fans like us, you know.
Exactly. You listen to the podcasts, I mean, listen, like, support horror magazines, support metal magazines, metal podcasts. I mean, that's really where you're gonna hear about things. No?
Exactly. Hey, I
Ex-
think I mentioned this to you yesterday, but I caught that movie Malum. That was another
mm,
movie I saw, which I thought that all right. The thing with Malum, the same guy who made, all right, this is a remake of a movie by the
mhm.
same guy who made the original movie.
Yeah, I feel like that actually kind of has happened before, right? Because
Really?
one could say Skinamarink is a
Okay.
remake of his short film,
Yeah.
which name is escaping me right now.
Right.
And I could definitely think of that happening before. It is rare, but it does happen.
So I thought we actually covered this movie way back in the beginning.
Mm,
It's a movie called The Last Watch. Okay.
okay.
It came out like in 2011 or something like 2011.
That title is familiar.
We, I know that we talked about it, and but I went back through our old episodes and I didn't see it listed anywhere. So unless it was like one of those times when we were doing like three movies at once and it snuck in there somewhere.
Right.
But I don't. I thought we'd covered it, but we never did, according to
Hmm.
like my research. Okay, so Malum just came out. It just hit streaming, like I think
Okay.
last week. So I checked it out yesterday, and I gotta say, man, I I like the original better. I think.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to watch both.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. I mean, I'm sure Malum will show up on Shudder right quick. Probably in the next few months or whatever, a month or two, you'll see it on Shudder. But
mm,
it's not that it was bad, but the original one really had this atmosphere to it, and the new one just I don't know. It just seems. I don't know. I know that I read about it. They were trying to make it develop it more. They were trying to build up more of a backstory. They were trying, but it just fell short. And maybe I don't know. I thought the original one was way better. So there you go. Anyone who is familiar with either one of these films, please let me know what your thoughts are on it.
yeah. Hey, shit happens, man. I mean, not everything's gonna be a home run.
Yeah, I got one other movie. I mentioned this on the last episode, but I wanted to see if you've seen this film. It's on Netflix. It's called Soft and Quiet.
Oh no, I've actually recently come across my face, and I've wanted
Yeah,
to check it out. Is it good?
a listener recommended that I check it out for some really disturbing stuff, and
Mm,
he said he was going to call in, but instead he messaged. So I'm like, all right, cool. That's great, dude. It was fucking. It was disturbing. It was really uncomfortable. Um,
mm.
it was it was a trip, man. Definitely go check it out.
Soft and quiet.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
What's the one or two lines what it's
All
about
right.
there.
I'll use like a little stanza here to explain what it's
Okay.
about.
Got it.
White women,
Uh-huh.
white power.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Really?
dude. It's like
Hmm.
so they fucking go there in this movie, man, and it's like brutal and uncomfortable, timely,
Wow.
if I may say so. But yeah, it's one of these movies where you're just like you think about it and you're like, yeah, I could see some of these people. You know how like you have like there's these people out there that you're like all the stereotypes are kind of hit in this thing, and there's like some
Uh-huh.
reveals. Like there's an interesting like dude, you just got to see it, man. I mean,
So it's horror, it's drama. What
well,
is it?
it horrible stuff happens in it,
Okay.
but
Okay.
it's almost like a all girl white girl, an all white girl, Last House on the Left or something like that, maybe.
Really? Oh my God, I have to see this.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
that's actually if we cover it, that's how I'm going to tag it as
Yeah.
a white girl Last House on the Left.
Well, that sounds kind of cool to me. I mean, it's doesn't definitely something that hasn't been done before. I'll
Yeah,
say that.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, it's on Netflix. So yeah,
Okay.
I felt really uncomfortable watching it, and then like I felt really bummed out after the conclusion of the film. You know.
Wild. All right. Well, I'll definitely be checking that out, man. That sounds pretty sick to me.
Yeah.
Um, so listeners, we talked about the Chainsaw Walls on Shudder. And sometimes, while we're, picking out movies to do and if we've done a bunch of old ones in a row, say, right? And we'll be like, let's pick a nice fresh new 2023 entry, And I guess you could say that's kind of what we did this time. And we picked a new film that is currently on Shudder. That's what we did, right, Mike?
Yes, and Shudder, their originals, that they have, their exclusives are
Exclusive. Yeah.
yeah, the exclusives are a mixed bag sometimes. You know what I mean? And
Indeed, they are.
yeah, sometimes they're excellent, and sometimes they're so. And I take responsibility for bringing this one up to cover because I watched like half of it, or so. I watched like maybe like the first 20 minutes on my lunch break, and I'm like, oh, this is fucking awesome, man. This has got like this cool like atmosphere, and there's like religious stuff in there, and like and then I recommended it to Mike, and I'm like, let's do this. You know what I mean? So it's my fault that we
Yeah,
both watched this.
Mike's text byline was, it's British horror, it's on Shudder. It has to do with like nuns and supernatural and religion, and I'm like, okay, sure, all right. And then I look it up. I see it has Jenna Malone in it. I'm like, holy shit, Jenna Malone's doing a little indie horror movie. Danny Houston is in it, and it's got some names. And its director Christopher Smith has done several other horror films. He did the 2006 Severance, the UK film, Black Death, Get Santa, Detour, The Vanishing, Triangle. All these movies are basically horror movies. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a cool movie. And look, hey, as Mike said, Shudder exclusives. As I will say exclusive, as this is not a Shudder original.
Right.
It's actually via IFC Films, and I mentioned to Mike before the episode started that kind of used to mean something, and I don't really think it does anymore.
It's been a minute.
I feel like
been a minute.
Yeah, IFC had. I mean, shit. I think IFC was, with Trouble Every Day. Like I remember IFC with like these really kind of like exciting and interesting or over the top, irreverent films. But not this time for this film, huh, Mike?
No, and on paper everything seemed to line up. You know what I mean? And then I previewed it. I was just like taking my lunch break, and I'm like, all right, let me. This looks kind of cool, and I put it on, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna finish watching this, and then I brought it up to you, and then I'm like, yeah, let's cover it. It looks cool, like it, has all the trappings of a good film. But then, obviously, I don't want to give too much away of what were our thoughts on this thing, but we were a little disappointed. I think,
A bit let down. It wasn't my favorite movie. It wasn't But let's give the deets, as the kids say, on this one. As I've said earlier, the film is Consecration, currently streaming on Shudder. Directed by Christopher Smith, written by Christopher Smith and Laurie Cook. Laurie Cook, also one of the co-producers. It stars Jenna Malone as Grace, Danny Houston as Father Romero, Janet Suzman as Mother Superior, Thorne Ferguson as DCI Officer Harris, and Stefan Sinid as Michael. It is a UK film, shot in late 2021, actually, in London and Scotland. Interesting that it was shot in October 2021. That's kind of like, I mean, that's not 2020 pandemic, but like late 2021 is still pretty pandemic-y, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's Yeah, I mean we're still kind of in the middle of it, or not the middle, the tail end. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
the
I mean, I
decline.
believe filmings, I guess, were obviously happening, obviously,
Yeah,
in October 2021. Um, but yeah, it came out on March 3rd on video on demand in America. On May 19th, it dropped on Shudder. So really, days ago, it actually came out on Shudder. It came out in the UK on February 10th, 2023. So it's, it's a new ass film, huh?
it is, and yeah, like I said, it looks great. It's shot really well. It has that British, dark, rainy kind of look to it,
Hmm.
and it starts off strong. I think. I mean, Grace has a brother, Michael. They're
Yeah.
two siblings. She's a person of science. She's
Mhm.
like a
Optometrist.
optometrist. It opens up with
Hmm.
her talking to one of her patients and explaining that there's some kind of medical procedure that this person needs to be done, and she'll organize this whole way of having them do this procedure on them.
Uh-huh.
She gets a call that her brother is dead, and he's up at a convent
Hmm.
in Scotland, I believe, right, somewhere in Scotland. So she has to
Yes, they're
travel.
in London, right? The movie starts in London, and she has to go to Scotland to retrieve her brother. And as Mike said, the movie looked good. You know, again, I feel like Jenna Malone used to do a different type of film, different fare. Going through her listing of movies, she did it over 40 movies since the late 90s. She was in Donnie Darko as his love interest Gretchen. She was in a movie that we enjoyed, Neon Demon, Michael.
Oh yeah, yep.
She was in parts one and two of The Hunger Games. She's in that movie Sucker Punch that I never saw, but I always wanted to check out from like 2011. I mean, just like a shit ton of movies, and she's got a couple of movies coming out after this movie. So she's like a working actress of, I would say, decent quality. Oh yeah, Inherent Vice. You ever see that movie?
I haven't. No.
Yeah, it's a Thomas Anderson movie. It's one of his more weirder ones. It's pretty cool though. Yeah, she's in that too. I would check that out if I were you.
Okay.
Um, oh, and she's in The Ruins. You remember The Ruins?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah, it is a good movie. 2008. That's something we might want to think about
Yeah,
covering
yeah. I can
actually.
see that. I saw that.
That's
I've
kind of,
actually seen it recently too.
yeah, fun movie. So yeah, and now Jenna Malone's doing this movie, which
But you know what, man? Honestly, it's like if you really look, like I said, on paper, like when they're in pre-production, and they're like, okay, they're pitching this, they're casting the movie, and like it looks, it had a promising feel to it.
it does. And again, we'll stress it starts out pretty damn good, pretty strong. You know, going to see her murdered brother, and like uh, there's a I don't know if you caught this. There's like this very, like to me, fairly blatant Shining nod, in the car. That like aerial shot. Did you kind of catch
Yeah,
that?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff like that where it takes in the
There's a
landscape.
couple things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's like you're in like a beautiful part of the world, so it really there's lots of these great like aerial shots of like the coastline and the waves breaking
Yeah.
on these rocks and this like Scottish
The
landscape.
ocean.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
great, but and like it starts off strong, a good atmosphere. It just has this like somber like vibe. There's this religious Catholic, Roman Catholic imagery in it, which we have like a thing for that style too, don't we, Mike? We like that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
I mean, definitely. I just feel like by less than the halfway point, the movie is a bit of a snooze fest,
Yeah.
and it reaches these supernatural kind of angles that I don't know. I felt like they might have been better without, and some of the effects are a little wonky and a little cheap. Um, and I gotta say, some of the performances, like there's a line that I actually just played back when the Mother Superior says, we're having lunch. And she just delivers it so like oddly and almost like terribly. Like, I don't know. It was just like this very odd thing where Jen Lawrence's character Grace wakes up in the the convent is what I'll just keep referring to it as, and she's wearing like all her nun clothes and all of her regular clothes are gone because they got wet because she fell in the ocean, and it's just this kind of clunkily delivered dialogue is how I'm going to phrase it, Mike. I don't know.
And it's confusing as to what's actually going on too. And the story I feel like is like unnecessarily complicated. It turns out that her brother was more of a believer, and
Mm-hmm.
they were adopted. And there's flashbacks to them growing up and an abusive father or abusive stepfather rather.
Yeah, there's a lot of flashbacks actually. There's a lot of flashbacks, and it's like you figure out that they're both adopted, and it's an adopted mother and father, and the mother is, the mother's dead, and the father may have done it, and I don't know. The word clunky will be used again, Mike. It gets a bit clunky, I feel like,
Well, one of the things that's there are good things about it too. It wasn't all bad. Like some of the story elements are interesting. Like there's references to some kind of relic and like in ancient orders, Knights of the Morning Star. Which there is like the Morning Star is like,
Knights of the Morning Star. Yeah, I know. I thought that was a bit much.
Yeah. Obviously, the Morning Star is Lucifer.
It's Lucifer, right?
So it's like that was a little bit on the nose.
Yeah.
And they were they're the bearers of this relic, and it was stored at this convent was like the keepers of a relic. So that's kind of cool. That's an interesting thing. Something from the Crusades, but that doesn't deliver though. That doesn't even deliver that aspect of the film because it turns out to be something completely different.
Like because that shit really that's real. Crusades are real. That really happened. They're historical things kind of mixed in with the fantastical, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like they might have been better off sticking with maybe the more, reality-based stuff. Because as it turns out, look, the convent is this is basically an evil nun film in a way. No, I mean, and honestly, like, I didn't really know it was going to be that. Like the nun thing to me is about as scary as it's just not scary for me. I don't know. And this is someone who went to 12 years of Catholic school, was hit by nuns with rulers, by the way, many times in grammar school, but they never scared me. I have to be honest. Like I was not scared of nuns. And that movie, The Nun, from a couple of years back, I actually saw in the theater, and I thought that kind of sucked. So it's like, it's just like...
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
it's not my thing, it's not my thing.
The Nun thing is not scary to me at all. I thought this was going to be some kind of like, like relic pagan thing, where there's like this like... There's another section in there where there's like this writing that her brother has in this journal, right? And it looks like cuneiform, like this kind of Sumerian writing or something. And I was like, oh, geez, this guy's like, there's going to be something that goes pre-Christian and some talisman from a different time and maybe there's like some connection to that. It just never developed the way I wanted it to. It just became like you said, Mike, an evil nun story. And who fucking cares about that, really,
Yeah, like there's no reason to make any more evil nun movies, although I literally think there's going to be another one from that franchise, oddly enough, because it made money, because some people like terrible horror. But for me, there's no reason to check this shit out. I don't know.
There's a film out there called The Borderland. Have you ever seen that?
No. The Borderlands? No.
It's a found footage British horror film that came out a few years ago, and it's kind of what I thought this movie was going to be like. It's like a church built over like some other structure, and there's like this Lovecraftian monster in there, and that's kind of what I thought this was going to be about. When they started talking about Knights of the Morning Star and a relic, and the Crusades. I thought there was
Hmm.
going to be some kind of dark magic thing going on, or some sort of like pre-Christian Satanism or demonology or something cool like that.
Yeah, like that's interesting to me, you know. I just think they tried to make this scary. I mean, there's actually some very gory scenes in the movie. Because some of the nuns, they kind of start killing themselves, even though they're actually not killing themselves. Surprise, surprise, they're being killed. Um, and some of that looked good. It was not a hugely budgeted film, I believe. Um, the actual budget is not on the Wikipedia page. I couldn't find it. It just said that the box office was 1.5 million, which is really not a lot of money because it apparently I think it played theatrically in the UK only. Um, but again, it's like, I feel like perhaps some of the actors in this movie did this movie uh, to put some food on the table. No, like I just, I felt like there's not a lot of heart in this movie, Mike. Like on any end, actually.
It could be if you look at when this film was made, 2021, you know,
Hmm.
like maybe it was
Yeah.
just like, people, it's like, hey, in October 2021, everyone was just like itching to get back out there to do something,
Yes. Hmm.
and maybe that was the case with everybody. They just wanted work to do and they wanted to get back to it, and that's maybe how these actors and these directors ended up with this script.
Well, this is weird. The director Christopher Smith told Entertainment Weekly, "I'm never more spooked out than when I walk into a church or temple. I wanted to make a movie about religion, but do it seriously." Really?
That's
Like,
disappointing, man.
I'm doing really on two counts because I don't find churches and temples scary in the slightest, number one. And number two, if you think that it is scary, which is okay, that's fine. This is what you put out. I mean, heaven help us. No pun intended.
Yeah, I did not find this scary. Like
No.
the first, right up until when she ended up at the convent. Okay,
Hmm.
up into the point where she views her brother's body, right, and then there's like a little bit past that. I thought that was pretty solid. Okay,
Yeah, that's kind of where I thought it was a decent movie. And then after that, it just was like, oh, this is really not a good movie.
and that was
Um,
about the length it took me to cook and eat my lunch. Okay, so that's why like. And I stopped. I'm like, damn, let me watch this later. I'm gonna finish. I'm gonna start this from the beginning. I'll watch it later tonight. And I was like, and then when I watched the rest of it, I was like, huh, okay.
oh, shit. um, Look, as I said, it starts out with, it was a kind of a dark mystery, and it goes into like, okay, crazy, nun horror. And then it basically ends up as like an avenging angel movie, right, Mike? Like a heavenly, you know, dark crusader, right?
Yeah, and it almost felt like something that Image Comics would have did like back in the '90s, but better.
Hmm.
They would have probably
Okay, yes,
written a better
yes.
script though. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And
Um,
yeah,
mhm.
so it's almost like the origin story for like a 1994 Image comic book character, except they would have done a better job writing the script and developing the character. You know what I'm trying to say?
I agree. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to totally trash Christopher Smith because he's been in horror for quite some time,
Yeah.
and I would like to see some of his other films just because some of them look interesting in the descriptions, particularly Severance, which apparently is very good.
That is a very good movie. Also, we
Yeah.
forgot to mention that he did Creep with the excellent Sean Harris, the British movie,
Ah, okay,
The
okay.
British Creep, excellent.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Um, but look, again, it might be uh, due to when it was made, a lot of constraints. It might be he wasn't able to fully realize his vision. He got a decent cast, but maybe not a lot of money. And maybe some of it seems a bit thrown together. And I think viewers, if you go ahead and check this out, you will agree. There's some interesting it was an interesting takedown of it on YouTube about some of the scenes. Although there was another guy on YouTube, another, horror reviewer guy that really enjoyed it. I found like three more that did not enjoy it, like myself. Um, yeah, the very beginning scene ties into the very ending scene though, which is kind of cool because one of the nuns looks like she's about to kill our Jenna Malone's Grace, and then of course, the fates intervene and she obviously does not die. But as it turns out, Jenna Malone is some almost 1,000-year-old. She is the relic, right, Mike Hill? She is you know, uh, basically the nuns were trying to trap her and kill her. And it turns out that like the nuns and all of the holy people are, of course, the bad people in this movie, right?
Yeah, and that's when I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, it's not supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be like she's not supposed to be the
Right,
like in my
right,
mind, I'm like, the movie should be this way, like the story should be like this, not the way you guys did it, and it's like, so I was checked out. I thought that was like, I don't know, that didn't really work for me, that whole element of the story.
yeah, because it's like, is it anti-religious or is it not really that anti-religious? Because Jenna Malone's character is kind of like an angel in a way, right? I mean, she's this, you know, being who has used her powers for good, ultimately uses them for good.
So some of the better treatments of religion, I think, in movies, in horror films, have obviously been obviously The Exorcist. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
one in three, of course. um, and A Dark Song.
Yes, that was cool.
Yeah, like without being overtly like the ending of The Dark Song is pretty fucking powerful without being like we're okay, we're into being Catholics or whatever, Christians. It wasn't that. I read that as being not necessarily like a pro Christian thing, but just like a pro
Hmm.
weird reality that exists, and that
Hmm.
there was like mythologies based around actual beings that ended up being Christian mythologies. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's funny. I actually thought that the Mother Superior, Janet Suzman, looked a little familiar. Uh, I mean, she is an 84-year-old woman from South Africa who's a Shakespearean actress.
Damn.
I guess
Okay.
you can kind of get that in while watching it with a quite huge filmography that goes back to the mid '60s. So she's been around a while. A lot of movie, a lot of television. She just had one of those faces that looked kind of familiar to me. What did you think?
I know. She just looked like some old lady to me. So, yeah, just like, but part of knowing that, how did they get these motherfuckers to be in this movie is what I want to know, man. It's like they got Christopher Smith, they got all
Hmm.
these actors and actresses, and it's just like, I don't know. I mean, like I said, maybe we're both onto something when we say that it's like, you know, everyone just wanted to get back on the road doing stuff, and this was the thing they made. That could very well be it.
Yeah, could totally be it. Um, or, listeners, you may like to see this movie and be like, I thought this movie was fantastic. Although I really don't think that's going to happen. I could be wrong, right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got their own taste, and obviously I don't fault anyone for what they like or dislike or whatever. But it just wasn't my bag. It's funny, right when I suggested that you and I cover this,
Hmm.
literally minutes after I sent you that text message, I got a text from Rennie, who just
Hmm.
watched the movie the night before and was
Oh no.
like ripping it apart. It was like, and I was like, oh man, like don't. And at that point, I hadn't seen the entire film yet either, because I was like, I'd watched, it was my lunch break or something, and then I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this looks cool, and I suggested we do it, and then literally 5 minutes after that got sent, I get a text from Rennie, and he's like, oh man, I saw the comment last night, that he went into all his litany of things he found wrong with it. You know what I mean?
See, now this is weird, right? Like you and I have covered a bunch of '70s, '80s stuff this year that we've all great stuff in our opinion. Nothing subpar. And here we are. It's almost June, right? And you and Jeff have done, I would say that perhaps the lion's share so far of the 2023 films.
Right.
And I feel like you and him have liked almost none of them.
Yeah.
But we've all liked Skinamarink. Is 2023 not at all going to be like 2022, or is it too soon to say?
I think 2023 is not not going to be what we got last year. Definitely
Yeah,
not.
I don't think so either.
And on a personal level, 2023 is a bigger piece of shit for me in my personal life than 2022 was. So all around, it's losing all around for me right now. So that's just my 2 cents on 2023.
Yeah, I know you're going through some stuff. I know, man.
Yeah. There's a lot of struggles going on right now. So
Yeah, but I mean, could be. Look, this whole ship could turn around in July, and for the rest of the year.
Well,
for the fans,
as we record this, June is almost upon us.
Right.
And June, maybe things will turn around in June. Maybe we'll start getting some good films. There are actually a couple things that look promising, if I remember correctly, that might be coming out. Hey, we still have Skinamarink, a divisive movie, but I believe that's going to be in my top 5, honestly.
And it's so funny how the three of us have sung its praises and will continue to sing its praises, and the consensus among a lot of the horror communities that they didn't like it, but I think we stick to our guns here at Necromaniacs podcast, and I haven't seen anything yet that's come close to being as good as that. So hopefully I do. Again, I have not seen Evil Dead Rise yet. I have a feeling I'm going to like it more than you and Jeff, even though I have nothing to base that on.
Yeah.
I may like it a bit more, but I may find its faults in it, like that you guys have found. But if you other people, like friends of mine online whose horror opinions I respect, like I respect yours and Jeff's, also said it's not as good as people are gushing over too. So interesting.
And we got the third installment of the Ty West trilogy coming out this year. That's the big one I'm really holding out for.
Yeah, hopefully that hits. Hopefully that makes it by the end of the year. I would be bummed if we have to wait till 2024 for that.
I can't imagine it not coming out this year, honestly. I mean, the shit's already fucking filmed, isn't it?
Yeah, it's already underway. I mean, Ty West works at a very nice pace, and I don't know what the budget is for this movie. But it's it's a mid 80s period piece, but I have a funny feeling it's going to look like a fucking mid 80s period piece, and it won't it won't cheap out on that. So I want them to kind of take their time with it, to be honest.
Did you see Infinity Pool?
No,
dude.
So okay, that I'm going to see,
yes.
And I know the two of you like that, so that I will see.
I liked it even more the second time I watched it. I saw it in the movie theater. I thought it was great. Then I watched it again after some things happened in my life that maybe reminded me of the lady that's in that movie. And I was like, wow, this hits even harder now the second time.
Okay.
Drunk, yelling women. Like just out of control women drinking wine.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's exactly that made the movie hit harder. You know what
I mean? That's pretty funny. So Mike Hill, Consecration. What do you give it on our beloved scale of 1 to 5?
For me, the way I see it, I give it a solid 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gave it a 2.5.
Oh. Okay.
So I have not given a 2.5 in quite some time. You do not need to see this movie. 3 is you can see this movie. 3 is check it out, see it. You could skip it. You can skip this movie, listeners. It's not very good. It's not very interesting. It has a good 20 minutes, 25 minutes, right, Mike?
Yeah, the beginning is good.
It's just going to be remembered as fodder, I think, for 2023. How about that? So
Yeah.
yeah, we don't really recommend this one. No.
It's just something that's in the catalog on Shudder, right? It's a line item. It's cool. It's like I'm glad it's there. Whatever, but it wasn't my cup of tea, shall we say?
Yeah, if you're into Jenna Malone and she's a lovely woman, hey, check it out.
Yeah.
Although she's almost like kind of, I didn't even really realize that was her, to be honest, until I'm looking at the actual cast.
They
Like,
they Brit her up a lot. You know what I mean? If you know what I'm
yeah,
saying. Yeah.
yeah,
No
yeah.
disrespect.
I gotta say, an example of an American woman. She's from Nevada, who does a pretty damn good job with the British accent. Not a lot of us do it well, Mike. Not a lot of us do it well. I think she did it well.
Yeah. And I know a lot of lovely ladies over in Britain, but you know what I'm saying when I say they Brit her up. You get it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'll never get the answer to the question as to why the Brits and the Australians can talk like us so well and we talk like them so poorly. Can someone figure that out?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I just I can't do accents. You know what I mean? I'm not one of these guys who can rip out like a Australian accent or a Southern accent. I mean, I guess I could do a Southern accent, except it sounds like a guy from New York doing a Southern accent.
Right, exactly. Like yeah, accents are tricky. They're very tricky, especially if you're New Yorkers like me and Mike. They're very tricky because to some of you, Mike and I sound like Arthur Fonzarelli or Sylvester Stallone. So it's just very tricky, right? It's very, very tricky for us. Yeah. I mean, I sound like, forget it.
That's a good current reference, Mike. Arthur Fonzarelli. That's a guy.
Hey, I did say Sylvester Stallone. I belted out the Arthur Fonzarelli reference, but I did follow it up with Sylvester Stallone, a fictional character and a real human being.
Do you want to know a fun fact about the Winkler family?
Sure.
In my hometown, Carmel, New York, there's the Winklers own a farm out there.
Oh.
Yeah.
He is a really nice guy. I went to this HBO screening thing for Barry, and he was there, and man, he just made everybody laugh and just seemed so nice, and people were able to say hello to him, and he just seemed like the fucking nicest guy in the world. So I dig Henry Winkler.
I mean, I'm a Happy Days fan. American Graffiti. Those are like things.
Yeah.
They're probably a little bit dated for a lot of the younger listeners here, but that's if you want to go watch a good, solid American film from a long time ago, definitely check out American Graffiti.
Yes, early George Lucas.
Yeah, early George Lucas. Harrison Ford's in it. Takes place in Bakersfield, California.
Yep.
The home of my former drummer, Joel Stallings from Anodyne. He grew up in Bakersfield. And yeah.
And it actually that movie kicks off the 50s nostalgia of the 70s. That movie kind of kicks it off. Like it kind of sets into motion Happy Days and Grease.
Yeah.
That movie, really, if you think about it. Yeah.
That's why I brought it up, I think, is because it definitely is like the precursor to those other fine fine features and television series that came out.
Yeah, totally.
Do you remember in Happy Days, Richie's older brother, Chuck?
Yes, the disappearance of Chuck Cunningham. He was on the show, and then after season 1, maybe season 2, but he just was written off the show, never spoken of ever again in the history of the show that went on for a very, very long time. He just disappeared from the show. Pretty funny.
Yeah,
you can Google it why. I think you can Google the reason why, or the whys and hows. But yes, there was an older brother. Pretty funny.
And the other thing too is the blue jacketed Arthur Fonzarelli versus the leather jacketed Arthur Fonzarelli.
Yeah, like interesting. Now that I kind of want to check out myself. The jacket switch of Happy Days.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Listeners, if any of you are in your 20s, you don't even know what we're talking about right now. But hopefully you do. I'm being a
But
little
we live in a
facetious.
world where all that stuff is available for people to check out. You never know. Some people, like I've run into people that just have these weird fixations on stuff that's way before their time too.
That's true. I mean, honestly, what's funny is that something from Happy Days became something quite prevalent in the modern world, and that's the term jump the shark. When Fonzie jumped the
Ah,
shark, it signified the downfall and real end of the show. And then that term in the O's became a term for when a franchise was kind of done with. It jumped the shark. Pretty funny.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you
All
go.
right.
All
Now,
right, guys.
may Necromaniacs podcast ever jump the shark? May we never jump the shark. Right, Mike?
I hope not.
No, no. I would say we, like a fine wine, are better than we've ever been. Hmm.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think so. I think if you go and listen to the earlier episodes, even though we were cranking out like 3 movies each episode, I think we do a way better job now.
Exactly. It's a more oiled machine, and we have the addition of Jeff, and yeah, I think it's far cry from the early days. The early days were a lot of fun.
I remember in the early days when we decided we were going to cut down on the number of movies and increase the number of shows every month. There was like a little
Mm.
pushback from some of the old listeners back then.
Yes, they missed the 3-2 kind of marathoners. But what's funny about that is that that was when podcasting was also kind of new, and I almost feel like podcasting itself became a little more streamlined
Yeah,
as we became a little more streamlined. Because I think podcasting was a little Wild Westy 10 years ago,
absolutely it was.
and
Yeah,
it didn't. People rambled, and we rambled, and
yeah,
whatever, it was what it was. Now I feel like hour 15, hour 20, get out of town. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like
definitely. Yeah.
it's you got to be mindful of your listeners and mindful of I think space and time.
And also, we would put episodes out whenever we wanted. There wasn't even like a schedule. Sometimes there'd be like weeks would go by between episodes, and like
Yeah, that's true.
and it
That's
was
true.
like, and they dropped whenever they came out, like on whatever day of the week, and it's like they would just show up in the feed. But now I like that we're on a schedule. It works a lot better for me.
Exactly. And now if we miss a week, it's like, uh-oh, is everything okay? So
Yeah.
again, we're very happy that you have let us into your lives, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. They can't all be winners, folks. And even Mike Scandato gives 2.5s. Yes, I don't love everything. And this was one of those times.
All right, guys. Take care, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you next time. Bye-bye.